The latest state report shows the fourth cutting of alfalfa in Nebraska is 41% complete, 11 points ahead of the state's 5-year average. We mentioned earlier this summer, rain may have changed the quality of hay across Nebraska, and even for producers purchasing hay. Nebraska Extension's Berger says sampling and testing the forage is the only way to accurately know its nutritive value. At the Goodmanson Sandhills lab recently, we talked with Aaron about the importance of sampling forages before feeding them this fall or winter.
So this year we've had a lot of good moisture in Nebraska, a lot of forage around, but a lot of that forage has been rained on, or not the quality we would like in terms of getting put up. So as we think about the fall and we think about feeding that hay, going out and getting some samples can really help us analyze what we have in terms of quality. It's really important to understand where you're at, and just taking the numbers you had from last year, probably not a good thing as we think about the quality you got this year.
How much can the nutrients differ, or what's in the forage differ?
Yeah, it can really differ significantly from year to year. You can differ from portions in terms of how you got the hay put up. One field next to the other can differ, and so testing individual fields, testing them by each cutting, if you're multiple cuttings, is the way you need to do that.
How do you make sure you get a representative and adequate sample?
Yeah, so when we think about sampling hay, we want to make sure we do get a representative sample. I think we want to look at the lot of hay we have available. We want to number the bales and then maybe take every 4th bale or every 5th bale so we get a good accurate sample of what's there. And we also want to take more samples than what we might need. So just going out and getting 1 or 2 bales and say, oh, that's enough for the sample, that's not really what we want to do. We want to get 15, 20 samples, mix those all together, get a good mix, and then get a representative sample out of that to really get an accurate handle on what we have.
You send the sample in, you get the analysis back. Now how do you read it?
Yeah, so when we think about samples in terms of forages, first things I think about when we think about quality is crude protein, and then TDN, which stands for total digestible nutrients, which is a measure of energy. We have some good resources on the beef website that explain how to read those. They'll be reported back to you on an as received and then as a dry matter basis. We want to look at those feeds on a dry matter basis, which takes out the moisture and gives us a true understanding of what the value is there.
Anything else we should be testing for?
Yeah, so another thing we want to think about when we're testing forages is if we're doing anything with annual forages, nitrates is something we want to get a handle on. And so again, thinking about where those bales are in the field. If you know you have some portions of the field that you think could be higher in nitrate, I'd recommend maybe sampling some bales from those areas first. But that's, again, a simple test, but we want to get an accurate sample. The challenge a little bit with nitrate testing is that we can have some real variation within a field. And so trying to identify what we say maybe those hot spots first, testing those is helpful. Another thing, if we're thinking about harvesting annual forages as we get into this later part of the year, I encourage people to actually take a nitrate sample in the field before they go and cut it. We can do some things from a management standpoint to minimize that if we have some nitrates. Things like raising the cutter bar. Nitrates are going to be concentrated in the bottom third of the stem. We can maybe wait a little bit, hopefully that those nitrates will dissipate. Just some things we have some options if we know ahead of time.
Are there ways you know which areas of the field might be in high risk for nitrates?
Yeah, so I think it's really challenging to know if we have any drought stress, or if we have any areas where maybe we were applying some manure or other nutrients where we have a lot more growth. Sometimes that can be, to be quite candid, it can really vary. And sometimes you just don't know. A field that you think would not have any problem comes out that you need to do something from a management standpoint because it's hotter than we'd like it to be. On the other hand, I've seen some times where we had stressed fields, thought, boy, that would be a good candidate, and it comes out fine. So the only way to know is test, and that's the only way you can get accurate knowledge of what you got.
As Aaron mentioned, UNL's beef website contains more resources on sampling and testing forages, including a recent article Aaron authored on the topic. We'll link to that information on the Market Journal website.